Hail and well met, readers and reviewers. I know. Last chapter of my serial novel, I teased that we'd have some big news this week, and it's been delayed. Will it drop next week? Will it drop today? I'm not sure. But back in the halcyon days before a big corporation took our little store, and before I started releasing a novel a chapter at a time on this channel, I used to interview authors and artists of other kinds every week to help readers get to know the person behind the work they enjoy. And this week, I have a great interview with an author, Zlatko Enev, that I think you'll enjoy as much as I did. He's really cool. He's an interesting guy. I learned some things I've never been taught about before, so keep an eye out for some of those things that I think you'll have the same response I did. Like, why was I never taught about this? So if you're an author and you'd like to be on this show, if you're a reader and you have some idea about somebody I should interview, put that in the comments. Email me at NotAPipePublishing@gmail.com. And I would love to have on, more authors and artists as we make our way through both the bricks and minifigs thing and through this book, where there may be weeks where I have to take a week off because there hasn't been a big development in either the case or in my own life. I'm in a holding pattern for a week. Very frustrating. But hopefully we will have a lot going on. This next chapter, I think, is going to be very funny because of what's going to happen, but it depends on when it happens. So soon. Hopefully soon. But speaking of artists, we have an amazing artist who sponsored the show this week. Maxime Minard is a fantasy artist who's worked with Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons. You can get prints of his art and links to his gallery page. I'll put those in the show notes. And there's also a link to the video game Carnholt that's currently in development. So check that out because I think it looks really cool. So that's artist Maxime Minard. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Again, if any of you out there know somebody who's got a product to pitch, some art that they would like to get out into the world, or a novel that people should be reading, please reach out to me and become a sponsor of the show. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, here we go. Here's our interview with author Zlatko Enev. Zlatko Enev, welcome to Writers Not Writing. I'm here with today's guest, Zlatko Enev. Zlatko Enev is a Bulgarian-born author and happy grandfather living in Berlin, who's the author of the children's Fire Curl trilogy. So Zlatko, tell everybody about your books and kind of the journey that brought you to this trilogy.
Yes, first of all, of course, thank you for having me. As for the books, this is a story that is too long to be told easily. I'll try to touch it here and there, but it's a fact that I've been working on these books in different iterations in their history for 25 years now. And you probably saw the site, which everybody says is great. I also have a heap of other medial stuff that is not necessarily there. I've worked basically incessantly on this project, but whether it is that coming from a very small and peripheral culture and language, it is extremely difficult to penetrate the English language market, or the books themselves are not that convincing. I don't want to put all the explanation in one basket, But for any possible reason, I've been not so successful so far. In my country, they are relatively established in a very surprising, constellation of events. One of them got published in China. You probably read about
Excellent.
That was a very, very nice and very sad story because the girl who made it possible later passed away. I won't go into this. Then I had different adventurous turns on the way, like having written and signed and whatever contract with the third biggest publisher in Russia. It was 20 years ago in 2005. Then they somehow, whiffed. They got the gist of those books, and they're very, very anti-Putin. Very much a criticism of any kind of not exactly totalitarian, but call it an oppressive society. And the Russians, who were extremely excited at the beginning, lost every interest after a while, and the project died. I was at that time devastated, but it was 20 years ago. Time heals everything. Well, I have had also a lot of very lucky, very happy experiences along this way. For example, only 3 or 4 years ago, fate got me together with an extremely gifted artist, a Bulgarian illustrator, a young lady in the beginning of her 30s. And in the course of 1.5 or 2 years, we produced a series of 180 extremely beautiful illustrations.
I have seen the illustrations. They really are fantastic.
Yeah, she's a comic book artist, actually, and they have this certain feel of youth in them. This is very untypical for Bulgaria, which is relatively conservative society and culture. But youth is youth. I mean, she's learned this probably on the net or whatever, and she's very good at it. Yeah. So they're not directly comical, but they're also, well, extremely expressive, let's put it this way. And this allowed me to produce the site, which, I'm not very successful in popularizing it. Maybe I have luck, and maybe this...
right. Well, I do encourage folks to check out the website. It's really cool, and I love the way you kind of, it told the story of the story. So how this has, come about, how the challenges and kind of the whole narrative of how that came about. So I will include a link. Folks can check that out and see the art. It really is beautiful.
May I pronounce the name of the site here?
Yes, by all means, please.
All right. The main character and the trilogy is called Fire Curl, and so is the site. It's firecurl.com.
And that's Curl with a C. She's got red hair, so it's Fire Curl.
Yes. That's it. So I don't know if I answered the question already, but I talked a lot, so I think it's time to go to something else.
Well, I do want to hear a little bit more about the books themselves. So they tell the story of this young girl. She's how old at the beginning? Because she grows quite a bit over the course of the series. But tell everybody a little bit about that series.
Right. Well, she's 9 years at the beginning, but the fact is, and I never intended it like this, she's actually a figure of the kind of whom people usually say she's been born old. Because she's a problem solver of extreme power. And in this magic world, the most important thing about those books is that there is no real magical solutions to problems. You cannot, wave a magic, how was the word?
Wand.
And solve problems. Everything is solved with intellect there. And she has a powerful ally in the figure of her backpack, as funny as it might sound, the lovely Pouchy. I also consider it very important that both the main characters in the book are girls, which is for me very, very important, because the usual characters in adventure novels for kids and young adolescents are traditionally boys, and I don't think this is very much in the spirit of the times, whatever. So she starts as an explorer. It's a story that starts slowly, and maybe this was the reason that most agents, and believe me, I've sent it to more than 300 agencies in the course. Most agents read the first, say, 10 or 15 pages, and they say, "This is a story for 7 years old. What the heck?" I mean, and it is a slow burner. She enters it. She has a lot to learn. She's a spoiled brat at the beginning, quite directly. And this is actually the main theme of the first book. It's what they call here in Germany eine Menschwerdung, becoming human. You know, she has to grow up. She has to grow up intellectually, psychologically, physically, whatever. And the most important thing is she needs to learn how to win friends and how to respect friendship. Because in the beginning, she's not very much in this. And it's connected with a lot of difficult tests, which she has to, and one by one, she grows into the situation, and at the end, she becomes really an unbeatable force together with Pouch. So they build a contrasting duo. Farquhar, her name is Anne, actually. Anne Farquhar, she's always impulsive. She wants to fight. She's just hurricane in jeans. Whereas Pouchy is a little bit scared all the time. She's extremely reasonable, but she's sharp as nails here up there. And together they solve all problems. And there are very, very difficult puzzles in this book. Well, this is the first book, and somewhere in the middle of it comes what I consider the most important thing about the trilogy: the fact that it's written actually not exactly for kids. Up from, say, half of it, there suddenly appears a situation in which, through different events, she gets diminished to the size of an ant in this magical world. She gets into the anthill, and there is a terrible totalitarian society, which is Orwell 121. And she needs to solve the problem of how to free this society, which is an extremely complex task. And again, I won't uncover here any secrets, but this was the first time when in the books there started to appear purely political motives. Mm-hmm. And you won't believe it, those books turned out to kind of, I don't have another word for it. They predicted a lot of stuff that happened later. For example, in book 2, which was written in 2002, the whole story is based on the premise that history has been changed, manipulated. The main opponent, who happens to be a beaver of all creatures, has bought out all the media in the forest. He's in complete control. He can control the narrative. And what happens is that the whole mythology of the second book is turned upside down. She beats him terribly. I mean, in the metaphorical sense, like in a sports game in the first game. Yeah. But in the second game, she comes into a forest where everybody is convinced that she's an evil witch who's been beaten by the good, liberator, the great Heino, the task here is to not just beat him again, but to turn things to the task that we all have today.
Right.
Bring truth to its place, and she solves it brilliantly with different. In the third book, which is kind of post-apocalyptic, she turns again back in the forest, and there has happened a terrible catastrophe. We don't know what the reason is, but it's practically a post-apocalyptic society. And in this society, different goons have built their small empires, and she has to fight them here and there. But of course, behind all this stays the evil power of all the books. It's Heino. This time he's disguised. You cannot recognize him. But a small detail. One of those characters who happens to be a hog, he has a part of the forest, and next to him there is a place where kind of liberty, kind of democracy exists. Into the cadaver of a prehistorical beast, they built a small town and they live happily there. But he cannot accept this, and of course he has to find a narrative in which this thing has been part of them, so he has to annex it. He has to liberate those people. This was 14 years before Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, a lot of stuff that really kind of surprised me myself. I never expected those books to become anything but children's books. And in my opinion, now they're, well, not anything but children's books, because a lot of folks, children read them without any problem. Children, I mean, there were many, many years in which I had left them for free download on the net between, say, 2005 and 2015 somewhere. And they got downloaded something like 100,000 times. So I got feedback from all over the world, from Australia to Canada, from Chile to India. People would write to me, and the refrain, the repeating theme was always, how is it possible that something like this exists and nobody knows about it? I could never explain this, and I don't have an explanation. I don't need an explanation.
Yeah.
This thing, by the way, I'm the father of a severely handicapped child. I have an autistic daughter. And these books and my child taught me a very important lesson. Don't expect anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll give up. And this is how I live. I'm a relatively happy person, you know. I don't feel like I've lived through some kind of defeat or anything. I've not had the success that I dream of, but what's the problem?
Right.
I'm happy anyway, because I don't expect it. I don't live with the thought, oh, I've been robbed of what I deserve. It's just as it is, and I live with it without complaining. That's it.
Well, and I love the fact that, I mean, I've written dystopia as well, and it's funny because we write it and we feel like, oh, this is predicting the future in some way that you only see after the fact, but really it's because the pretexts that totalitarians, that oligarchs, that these folks use are so predictable, are so simplistic, are things that children can understand. And I love the idea of preparing children for that. Somebody's going to come along and say, that thing you already have, you don't know this, but that was part of us. I get to have that back. And I think even little kids can understand, the argument made to take back Ukraine is a child's argument. And to which is not to say that every child out there would see it coming, but preparing children to be able to say, hey, when I see that in the world, somebody just declaring that they get to have something and annexing it is not acceptable, and it, it doesn't make us Nostradamus, genius predictors. It's that this has happened over and over and over in history, and we can kind of see that somebody will try again, and being able to look at the news and look at history and say, this is something that could happen, that has happened, and our children need to be prepared for it, need to be aware. I think that's wonderful that you provided them a mechanism so that when they hear those arguments, they can already say, I read about this in Fire Curl. This is not okay.
I hope they don't accept it as an inevitable truth or whatever, because, of course, we all know that it's all on us if it will, be a fulfilled destiny or the failed project of the next great master of the universe or whatever. Before Ukraine, we had Austria, we had the Sudeten, German. So there's nothing new about it. Everybody.
Well, and I was thinking about your description of the fact that you started the series in 2002 and the second book's using the media to control people, and of course that has happened over and over and over in different places. But that was before what was his name in Italy, who was a media mogul.
Mussolini?
No.
Berlusconi, I mean.
Berlusconi.
Yeah.
Erdogan in Turkey has absolutely, taken over the media. So that model that you were describing had happened in the past, but not in the way that these, your readers have seen in their own lifetime. That if you can control the narrative, through every platform, you can convince a lot of people to believe whatever it is you want. So again, I think providing them with a way where they can say, everybody around me might believe this because it might be on all the media, but I know that the media is something I should view with a critical eye because I read about that in a children's book when I was 9 years old. And I saw the way, this character that I identify with had to overcome deceptive media. I think that's a great thing for kids to be exposed to, even when they're young.
Well, the really terrible thing, at least in my country, is that it can speak about everything. You can write, you can publish on the net, but nothing really changes.
Hmm.
People live with what they believe in, and this is not changing. So this is a big source of frustration for me, but I've also learned to accept it because one of the things that stays in that story of mine is a short sentence like, try to change people in order to learn your mortality. So this is it in a nutshell. But let's turn back to more book-oriented stuff. We probably became too political here a little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
it's fine. Well, one of the things I like to do on this show is help readers get to know the author behind the work. So, what has been something that has been, when you're not working on the book, what has been something that has been a really pleasant distraction for in the last week, month, whatever, that you have enjoyed?
Well, it's been actually for the last 45 years. I'm a gym rat. I'm an extreme, I've been exercising almost daily for the last 45 years. And this is my usual way of just letting go because I work here like 10 hours every day.
Yeah.
And after that, my head is so, blown up. The only way to somehow loosen is to go to the gym and then sit 1 hour in the sauna. And this is my favorite way of, of course, swallowing all kinds of information, but this is more work than. So basically, my life is, kids are growing up. As I said, they have their own lives. I'm separated from my ex-wife for more than 20 years. So I live here in I made a small hostel out of my apartment. So I'm not lonely.
Yeah.
It's full of folks here. I have 150 people a month here. So it's very funny and very nice and very interesting, but I'm not relaxing very much. I
Right.
work all of the time, and it's then in the evening that I go to the gym. And it's for a lot of people, maybe a bit monotonous, but that's my life. It's 90% work and 10% relaxation, something like
Is
this.
Is your gym more crowded? I mean, is the evening a better time to go because it's not as crowded, or what do you find is that is that just when it worked in your life, but it's a crowded time there?
Well, there are different considerations. Of course, in the evening, it's less crowded. But the important thing is that the sauna is not so hot in the last
Ah,
hour. I cannot really sit in a 90-degree sauna for 1 hour. And I sit in the sauna for 1 hour with pauses, of course, otherwise I'll die. But I can only do it if it's more like 70 degrees or something. And this is the last hour, so
yeah.
I'll uncover all my secrets here.
Yes, yes. But I mean, that is the end of your day. You're coming home and and then starting fresh again.
After that, I read, I watch TV. I'm not TV, but I watch films, and I don't watch TV at all. I watch films and serials. But I have another 1, 2, 3 hours of again intensive work. So I go to bed somewhere like 2 in the morning usually. Then get up in between 8 and 9, and that's it. And then
Yeah,
it's again 9 to say 7 or 8 or whatever when I
yeah.
work.
Yeah, I'm a what we call a night owl. I stay up quite late, and then I've similar hours, and I think probably similar, workaholism. I work
Yeah.
a
Well,
lot of
I'm
hours.
self-employed, which allows me to, define my time as I like. I don't have a boss. I don't have employees. I do what I like, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is a book that you have not yet read, but that you're looking forward to reading, that will take you away from your own work, but you're looking forward to it?
Oh, I'd rather mention one that I've already read, but
Oh,
I'm
sure.
very much looking forward to reading it again. And it's Watership Down.
Oh,
This great story about the rabbits fighting
yes.
for their freedom. It's one of my favorites, and it influenced me enormously when I wrote the Far Crow books, because that spirit of not giving up and looking like powerless, but being a very strong being below the surface, that is very much the spirit of my books too, because rabbits are usually the cowards of the world, but not in this book. And I like this
Oh,
very much about it. Yeah.
yes. That is a, if folks have not read Watership Down, don't go into it thinking that it will be, it's one of those where I would recommend reading it before reading it to your children so that you can decide when is appropriate for your children, because it's not really a children's book. But it is, you can read it to your kids when they are, I don't know. I mean, I would encourage parents to decide when is appropriate, but don't think cute bunnies. Think angry fighting rabbits and some pretty scary and death, and they're dealing with some heavy issues of mortality and what does it mean to be courageous, and that is a fantastic book. Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
how did that play into your own series? What were you able to draw from that? Because I agree, I love that book.
In To be honest, I almost copied a scene of it. I mean, not its spirit, of course, not its content, but the scene in which I forgot the name of that rabbit who fights the general in this,
Hmm.
the general,
Oh, I can't.
uh,
I'm blanking on it as
that
well.
intense fight, and the way he described, I even cannot remember the name of the author. I only remember the book. It went into the final scene of the first book where Anne is in a completely hopeless situation. She's surrounded by Heino and his goons, and she has to survive, and not just survive, but win. And I won't say how, but she manages terrifically. And the scene in which she fights him, she doesn't fight him. He's much bigger and stronger, but she avoids him, and the whole tension of the fight and the thoughts, the feelings that go through her. This is all Watership Down.
Right.
It's yeah. It was a very big inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a great
Well,
book.
by the way, the whole book is built on a somehow show-offing premise. There is a ton of hidden references, which kids, of course, cannot uncover, cannot decipher, but grown-ups can. In fact, in China, they made almost a game out of it to uncover all the cultural references that are, of course, there is Shakespeare, there is Dostoevsky, there is, I have a PhD in philosophy, so there is a ton of philosophy in this stuff. And they discovered even the most hidden one of them, because one of the central scenes in the book is a scene where after the dictatorship in the anthill is finally destroyed, the queen mother, or the mother queen, who has her own sins, but she is on her dying bed, and she holds a big speech to her children. Of course, everybody in this anthill is her children.
For
Yeah,
children, right?
this is, yeah, and it's built. I'll uncover it here. It's built on Chaplin's final speech from the Great Dictator.
Oh, Yes.
Nobody could see this if I don't tell it, but the Chinese discovered it.
That's great.
They're, I mean, it's not a false thing if you say in a country of 1.5 billion, there are 1,500 people who are 1 in a million,
Yeah.
So, so they're extremely smart there, and they discovered almost all of it, including Unamuno and whatever. I don't want to show off that much, but there is a ton of hidden stuff in this book, and they made
Which is
footnotes of them, which I didn't like, but anyway.
But I think I mean, yeah, I'm not sure I would want mine footnoted in quite that way, but it is fun for a reader. I think there's a really valuable experience as you're reading to go, oh, I get this reference. And so then you feel like as the reader, oh, I'm part of the in group who understands this joke. And so I think that or reference, I get it. I'm seeing that connection. One of the series that's been very popular here, which I recommend to folks. Matt Dinneman's Dungeon Crawler Carl is full of all these little references to pop culture, to other stories, to musical band, groups and that kind of thing. And but they're veiled in such a way that if you've got to know, you've got to be in the know to get the reference. And there are so many that people have done like online breakdowns,
Yeah.
finding those references, and it creates this community. So I think that's I recommend that. One of the books I've published, Sang Chroma's Jin. She used a whole bunch of things from Buffy the Vampire Slayer that
Oh
only a
yeah.
real Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan would get. And so
Yeah.
it creates this nice series of references for folks.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that's a valuable thing. So,
Yes.
what's something that you've been? I know this will seem like I'm changing the subject radically, but what's something that you've been daydreaming about lately? Because I find that daydreaming is part of the process in a way.
I have to think a little bit here. I have a bunch of books. The children's books are only a part of it, and yeah, my daydreaming is mostly concerned with my engagement with my native country. In fact, I've been publishing political and cultural online journal for the last 20 years in Bulgarian. And I'm not particularly loved there because I'm considered, well, a liberal is a four-letter word in Bulgarian.
Mm.
And they don't like this. But in the last year and a half, I kind of, you know, put my feet to the metal, and maybe I overdid it because I'm constantly questioning most of the established narratives of Bulgarian history, society, and everything. People hate us. So
Yeah.
what I've been daydreaming about is living 116 years so I can finally, probably, hopefully, see a generation of Bulgarians who is a little bit more open to the actually very standard issue liberal ideas I try to import in that country. But I don't think it will happen in less than 50 years from now.
Then do you think that's
It's
how long it's going to take? Well, and
Oh, I
that's
have no idea. It changes a little bit. For example, they are less hostile to the whole LGBT community right now, excluding the gender, the transgender part of it. It's absolutely unaccepted in that country. But homosexual, lesbians, etc., are not that much hated anymore in comparison to, say, 15 years ago. When I started, it was absolutely unthinkable to even talk about it.
yeah.
Everybody would just send greetings to your mother. Not that would be the only response. So there comes a new generation. People change, and slowly. But the biggest problems of that society are built in its history. I don't want to start a lesson on Bulgarian history. It was part of the Ottoman Empire for 500 years, which is not a problem in itself. But the way this story got told is extremely influenced by very vitriolic, very poisonous nationalism. So the basic Bulgarian mentality today is based on hatred. Hatred towards everything that is, say, not us.
Yeah.
And this is a very difficult environment in which I constantly write about it. And I just wanted, maybe I get carried away a little bit.
No, not at all. I mean,
Those books are just a small part. I have 8 books written, including scientific books. I have a very serious novel on the big crime of the newest Bulgarian history. I mean, we committed the first post-war big ethnic cleansing in Europe. We were the shameful champions several years before the Yugoslavians took the what is this called from us. We tried to eradicate the big Turkish minority in Bulgaria by changing their names and whatever and whatever. And I wrote the first novel 15 years ago because it was an absolute taboo. You could not speak about it. Fortunately, we didn't repeat or we didn't do what later the Yugoslavians did. We gave them back their rights in '89. So we avoided civil war. But the big thing stays. We were doing a huge ethnical cleansing of that society. And it's such a shameful thing. I cannot even talk about it. So my biggest novel is actually not at all for kids.
Yeah.
It's called Requiem for Nobody, and it's a terribly disgusting story about people trying to eradicate other people.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that is, speaking, coming from a country where our kind of meta narrative about ourselves is false, but is so broadly accepted that even saying, hey, this country is, my country is built on genocide and imperial exclusion and exploitation abroad. I like you, I think the next generation is learning that, is going to recognize that to a much greater degree. But somebody my age or older, when we talk about our own country's history, breaking through that sense of nationalism to have a real reckoning with our country's history is very, very difficult. And so I can understand why folks would say this is just a story that I can't really wrestle with, because it challenges so much of my perception of my own country's history.
I've been, well, I don't want to start. I've been, overpoured with hatred in the last, because I really touched on the biggest mythologies in Bulgarian history, and they're all built on the idea that, this is, I don't know, this is probably a small country complex. There is nothing we are responsible for, Everything is caused to us by outside forces. It was either Byzantium or the Ottomans or the Germans or the Russians. And I expect the moment when it will be the Martians, because that's the only one that's remained out of the picture so far. So it's a basic story of innocence. Oh, we're the small, and I hate this in my guts, we did so much evil things in our history, and they're all, carried under the carpet, and everything that was anytime done to us, it's the big stuff. And you don't change yourself if you don't accept responsibility. This is either as an individual or as a society. The first thing, and Germany is probably the only country that made a serious attempt at it. Unfortunately, they start to change now. This is the first and only country in the world that tried to really take responsibility for their history.
Reckon with their history.
They were successful till the 90s, maybe till the 2000s, but nowadays it's slowly turning back into this old narrative that somebody else is guilty or responsible or whatever, and I don't see very much good things in the future.
I see scary things, and it's not just Germany, but yes, the rise of these these kind of revisionist fascist parties. The fact that we are seeing the rise of the right in Germany, in France, in Italy, in the UK, all at the same time, it's no accident. There's a lot of, a lot of money and effort being put into this concerted effort across Western Europe, United States, Canada is having this as well. But it is very concerning. Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. So, in addition to your own writing, you're clearly pushing back on this and your own, staying involved in reading. I'm sure you come across this idea, what they refer to in the United States as flooding the zone. And it's a football metaphor, but it's this idea of trying to prevent people from recognizing what's really going on by throwing so much news at them that they miss what's important. So what's something that maybe in Bulgaria itself that is going on that you wish people outside of Bulgaria were aware of, that they might just be missing?
Well, I devoted an extreme amount of effort of making known to the world this big crime I noticed. So far, that book has been translated only in Polish, but I have a complete translation in English, by the way. If anybody is interested, I can send it to them. And it's not an easy thing to swallow, but this is one of the things that I've been very, very happy to live to, the moment when nobody in the world, like really nobody has ever heard of the fact that Bulgaria, who knows what Bulgaria is, where it is at all, but that this small country was the tragic champion of ethnic cleansing of Europe, and that it did terrible things. Fortunately, there were not very many victims, not physically. But what we did to these people was basically everything that Nazi Germany did to the Jews till 1938. We didn't have gas chambers, but everything else, I could list it one after the other. We did it by the book, trying to basically undo, make disappear from the world of a huge minority. We have the second biggest minority in Europe after Romania, proportionally seen. They have like 20% of ethnic Hungarians, and we have like 10% of ethnic Turks in Bulgaria. And these are Turks, of course. Turks are great people. But they fed the folks the idea that these have been Bulgarians originally who have lost their identity in the course of those 500 years. So they said, we just give them back their real identity. And of course, Turks were, well, I don't want to start. That's a very sad story. This is what I would really be very, very happy to live to, the moment when the world has heard of this tragic story.
Yeah. And what is the title of that book again? A Requiem for Nobody?
Requiem for Nobody, yes.
Yeah. Yes. And folks can communicate with you to get an English translation of that?
Yeah, they can get parts of it. They can check it first on my personal site, which is zlatkoenev.com, just my name. And there is a big excerpt there, so they can decide on their own if they like it. But anybody who would like to read it is very welcome. I'll send it to anybody. I don't have any aspirations of or fears of broken copyright or whatever. I don't give a damn about those things.
Well, but if we have some folks who are saying that's something I would like to publish, if anybody's watching, that is the kind of story those are the kinds of stories that need to be told, and to get into people's hands. So that I think is incredibly valuable to tell those stories. That would be
too much of a Hollywood story to me.
Right, yes. But even if you could find a small press that was willing to say, we're going to put this out into the world.
I tried. Believe me, I sent it to dozens of agents in the UK, in America. I don't even get answers. I don't try this anymore. I feel too humiliated by this.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I've certainly been in the querying trenches, we say, in the trenches, which is, this really grim metaphor, but it can feel pretty terrible to be sending out those queries over and over and over and not getting replies. It is very demoralizing. So on a happier note, what is the kindest thing you can think of off the top of your head that you've ever seen someone do for someone else? The kindest thing.
Well, these are small scenes that I've memorized through the of people just being kind to my daughter,
Mm,
which is a thing that is unfortunately not happening automatically. She's obviously handicapped, not physically, you wouldn't see it, but the moment she opens her mouth, you see it. And it's very, very, very nice when you see people reacting to this in a human, natural way, like, uh, you're welcome with
yeah.
your handicap and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And it sticks with you, doesn't it? Like you
Oh,
see those
yes. Yeah.
moments and they last. And I think that's a
Yes.
good thing for all of us to be reminded of that the kindness that you witness, you know it lingers. It persists in the world.
In fact, the only book that got big resonance in Bulgaria with the grown-up community was the book that I wrote about life with my daughter, the family, and because in our family is something very, it's very happy and it's very, but it's not easy to do. You know, we're separated, me and my ex-wife, for 20 years, and she has a new husband. But the family continues to exist. It's like a family with two fathers now because there is deep respect and friendship between me and this guy. And um, my relationship to her is perfect, not um, you know, forgot the word, loaded by anything. And basically, the family exists despite the fact that we separated and that we have this very difficult problem to live. Not physically, she's under very good conditions and everything, but we do have this. She's 30 years old now, and she has the mentality of a 5 years old kid. So part of her handicap is that she doesn't grow up. She stays a small child for life.
Right.
So the book I wrote about this is the only one that had a real huge impact in Bulgaria. And I didn't know how tragic the situation is there and continues to be because those people who are really unfortunate in Bulgaria, to have a handicapped child in Bulgaria means that at least one of the parents has to forget everything. There's
Yeah.
no social care, no nothing. And one of them has to stay home. And usually people separate. It's a statistical unfortunate fact if there bad things happen to the kids in the family, like for God's sake, death or handicap. People have difficulties,
Oh,
much more
sure.
difficult, many more difficulties than usual to stay together because it's psychologically a loaded situation. So most of those people are single parents, and I also raised the two kids on my own for 10 years. You know, the
Right.
boy anyway, the girl for 3, and whatever. Something of which I'm more proud than even more my
Right.
books. I'm a female father. I can cook, I can clean, I can care about children. Please,
Right.
just come at me, no problem at all. So yeah, the atmosphere there is impossible. Many people say we cannot go with our children to the street
Mm.
because everybody is watching like we are extraterrestrial, and some people yell at us, etc.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very, very backward society.
Yeah. But I'm glad that that story resonated. And again, that there's a power to the story being told, so that some people are saying it does not have to be this way. You know?
It had a somehow funny destiny. I hear from more and more people specializing in psychology that it's become a kind of textbook
Ah,
for specialists in psychology in that country because there is so little written. You know, there are of course a lot of medical books and a lot of translated stuff, but this was the only book written by a parent in Bulgarian.
in
And
Bulgaria.
it's an original story, nothing created about it. So people got deeply moved by it. And yeah. it was a good experience. Still is.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. Well, one last question for you. What is your final piece of advice for my listeners? What would you advise people as they're going into their week to kind of take with them?
Well, I already told it. It's one of the most difficult things in life. It's a little bit of a Buddhist thing. Live without expectations and you'll be happy. Just don't stop fighting, working, whatever comes at you. Don't expect to win and you'll never give up. That's it. That's the recipe for happiness that I found in my life. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. And I'll have the show notes to all of your works and to the website, which I encourage folks to check out. They're in the show notes. So folks who are watching, check out the site and learn kind of the story of Fire Curl, as well as being able to check out the beautiful artwork and get your hands on the book as well. So thank you very much, Zlatko Enev, for being on the show.
Thank you, Benjamin. It was a real pleasure.